All right. Hey, how's it going? Dave from Combo Investments, and I'm here with Swagglehaus, right? Is that how you say it?
Yes,
Say it.
a lot of people say Swagglehaus. I guess it's technically Haas, but
Oh,
whichever one rolls off the
Swagglehaus.
tongue is fun.
Yeah.
It's fine by
Okay.
me.
Yeah, I'm here with him today. I'm thankful they agreed to do this interview. Um, so yeah, just say whatever you want to say to the people out there.
Sure. Yeah, Dave, thanks so much for, having me on your channel today. Looking forward to, this conversation and hopefully people enjoy whatever it is that we get into. But definitely it's cool. It's cool to meet you and
Mhm.
talk to you about this because a lot of people have always commented, they're like, "Oh, I would love to see you do a video with Dave." So it's great that we finally get to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like we kind of started around, I think you're a little earlier than me, but around the same time as me.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, did you have like a previous channel or anything, or is this like kind of like your first?
It didn't have necessarily like a previous channel, although my like Swagglehouse YouTube has been around for three
Was it
three and a
video
half
games
years
or
or something.
something?
Yeah, at some point, on my other, nerd side of my hobby, I play video games and stuff. So I've like streamed things on
Okay,
YouTube
that's
and
I'm like
that,
trying to remember. I'm
yeah,
like, there was something in video games.
exactly. So there's like some, old videos. And then the one day when I just started to, decide to do YouTube, I was like, all right, well, this channel already has, I don't know, like 50 subscribers. I'll just use this one, and just keep
Yeah.
going. And then just morphed it into the comic book one.
Okay, so first of all, Swaggle House. Is that your last name?
No, it's not my last name. It would be kind of a cool last name if it actually was that. Swagglehaus, as we were just kind of getting at, it was my like gamer tag name that I came up with, right? So if I play any video game, Swagglehaus is always going to be the one that it is. But yeah, that one came from. I was actually sort of given this name. So in my work life, I work in film and entertainment, and back in the day, I used to do a lot of music videos, and so
Hmm.
one of the artists that I had directed is this artist named Soldier Boy, if you know who Soldier Boy
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And there was this video called Pretty Boy Swag, and he was like talking to me, and he was saying, Mickey, you know, you got swag, but you got like nerd swag. You know what I mean? And so he was like, so he's like, you got like a swaggle like that. And and then he told me that I have swaggle. And then that kind of became my inside joke of like, okay, swaggle's my nerd swag. And then Haas is like house. So technically my name is the House of Nerd Swag, I guess, if
Ah, okay. That's interesting.
that's
Very
how,
interesting.
what it all means. But yeah,
Very
that's my
cool.
story.
So tell me, I guess, kind of like your origin story, like I mean, you don't have to start when you were born, but like this kind of like how you got into what you're doing now, what you do for work, if you want to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kind of like a lot of people, I got started really young into comic book collecting, and I always say that I was that generation, that the product of like the Tim Burton Batman movie, the
Okay.
1989 one, where it's like after that movie, there's kind of that explosion into comic book shops
90s
and
boom.
the whole
Yeah.
90s boom and everything. So I think it probably would have came off the heels of watching that with my dad and my brother. And then he probably was like, "Hey, let's go to a comic book store," that sort of thing. So I think I first stepped into a comic shop like in '89 or '90 for the first time, and spent a few years collecting, at that young age. And as people do, you kind of get in and out of it over the years, throughout. And then I finally really, really got back into the hobby. Like 2018 was probably when
Okay.
I really dove back into, where I am today.
Did
Um,
you have any of your old comics when you were a kid?
I did, yeah. I had a lot of that stuff. It was a lot of like '90s things, nothing like crazy, but some
Nothing worth
keys
a
like
ton.
nothing. Yeah, I was disappointed. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be rich. But it was like Spawn ones and ASM 361, and I think it
Oh
had
well,
a
you got some better
yeah.
keys in there.
There's
Did
like
you
an X-Men 266, like that type of stuff,
Okay,
right?
so
But
you got some good stuff for being a kid and
yeah,
not really knowing what to get. But I guess they've kind of panned out. That's pretty
yeah.
cool. So basically, you got into comics because you watched Batman. Was your dad or your family at all into comics, or were you just kind of the first?
Uh, I would not necessarily say that my dad was like into comics. I mean, it was something that he made mention that like, sure, yeah, when he was a kid, maybe he had a few, but he didn't have like any from his childhood or anything like
Okay.
that. So he was into the superhero stuff. Like he wanted to watch Batman.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that he was like a true collector in any kind of way. So us diving into it at that time was kind of the first for our family.
Okay. Very, very cool. Yeah. Do you remember the first comic that you got?
I don't know if it actually is the first one, but it's the
Or
one
that's
that
you
I
can
say
remember.
if I generally remember. So I think it's ASM 353 is the comic I think I remember getting first, which was basically like during Mark Bagley time, and on it was Darkhawk is on it. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you've ever seen some of my videos, you know, I always make the joke because I unironically love Darkhawk. He's like one of my favorite characters. So
Isn't Darkhawk kind of like a ripoff, like Wolverine and Batman, kind of like a little bit?
I think he's literally a ripoff of like every character. You know, he's like Peter Parker going to high school teenager, and then he's got an Iron Man suit, and he's got Wolverine claws, and he's got, you know,
Yeah,
like a Batman. He's just like an amalgamation of all the characters. But
yeah.
I still love him.
Isn't he? He's all metal and chrome. Very popular in the
Yeah,
90s. Have that chrome. Everything was
total,
chrome.
very
Chrome
90,
everywhere.
very 90s character, very 90s
Yeah.
character. But yeah, you know, and I think that 353 was probably my first book, and it had him on the cover, and then
You
that
started
kind
with
of led into.
Spider-Man.
So yeah, started with Spider-Man, like all kids do, I think.
I can't remember my first one. I remember the first one I bought, but it was different because my dad was a comic book dealer, so he would just give us.
Right.
I do remember buying. The only thing I can remember is buying out of like one of those dollar bin things, or it was like a quarter actually. It was like a Hulk. I want to say it was two something. It was one where Hulk's like pushing up this giant foot that's coming down. Like maybe it's 212 or 232, or I have no idea. I can't remember.
So
But,
so is that when like that's the one you consider that you first like bought that yourself kind of thing,
because
like picked it out as a kid?
yeah, because at that time I already collected comic books. Like I said, my dad was a dealer, so he would give me comic books, or I'd work and get comic books. But the first one I remember actually purchasing with my money, I was a little kid, was going to LB's Comics, ciphering through it was a quarter. It wasn't the dollar bin because it was, you know, it's like, I don't know, early 90s. And I remember that book, pulling that out and buying that one.
What did your dad think of your choice? Was he like, oh, that one's going to the moon? Or was he like, oh, you shouldn't have wasted your money on this one?
So comic book dealing and collecting back then was a different animal completely. It's nothing how it is now. There is no going to the moon. That didn't exist.
Right.
My dad so the Overstreet price guide would come out once a year. They had Wizard, but that kind of showed you what was hot and not at every month. But the Overstreet price guide is like this big. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's the normal price guide that everyone used. My dad would purposely hold books back because he knew when the price guide was coming out, because when the price guide came out, it would boost the numbers a little bit. It's like, oh, this one went up by 2%. This one went up by like 50 cents. And so he would hold books back and wait for the Overstreet to come out, because then everyone would get the new Overstreet and then his prices would go up. So there was no massive gains like there is today, where a book like could be worth $100 today. They have some announcement tomorrow, it's worth like $200.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. It's crazy how much that it's changed in that way, but it's funny how, like you say, you know, the guide itself was the thing that moved the market, I guess.
Yep. And what my dad always said is like, basically, if it's, you know, you went exactly by guide, and maybe if it was, you know, they didn't have 9.4, 9.6, 9.8. That's not how they said it. It was, you know, it was near mint, near mint plus, you know, mint. If it was like near mint, maybe you do 2x guide. And if it was, you know, like perfect, like a 9.8, what we call that, it maybe be 3 or 2.5 guide. And that's basically how it was. But everything else was guide, and you just go, I give you 60% of guide, and it just was guide. You know, that's the price.
Have you looked into the new Overstreet online thing that they've been putting together?
No, I thought Heritage bought them, or Diamond, or Comic Connector. Someone bought them, and now on Heritage they give you basically.
They do. But I think Overstreet is they have like an online, website like Overstreet Online that they're doing right now. I don't know if that means like Heritage owns it and they're just using the Overstreet brand name or whatever, but I think it's kind of in its beta. So, maybe it's going to be their competitor to the other sites like GPA or Go Collect or all those other sites. But I'm curious to see if they're going to pull data from other places or if they're going to still like be this is the price.
Yeah. They should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah, they should have, for sure.
It was really stupid on them. But if I can remember correctly, Bob Overstreet sold it and he was done with it. And whoever owned it was this, I don't know. They weren't like, let's make it the new best thing. And I don't know. So,
yeah.
But there's a lot of people I still talk to when I do deals that go by guide. They're like, in the guide, it says blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I feel like those are the situations, like, as annoying as it is to go to an LCS and have them price at the counter, I will say sometimes when there's like the old school dealer who's like, I'm going to pull out the Overstreet and price all your books, I'm just like, oh man, I'll take all of these prices for sure. Because they're going to be so outdated.
Most of them are this. Yeah. And the problem with coming out a yearly thing, you don't get the big swings of what's hot and not. And, like, imagine if you came out like right at the peak of the comic boom, everything would be sky high when everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so what are some things that you wish you would have known starting your comic book journey, like that now? Like, let's go to 2018, not when you're a kid, but when you started in 2018, start it up again.
It's the funny thing about it is it's like, I mean, it would be cheating, but if I knew in 2018 how much money I was going to eventually spend anyways, leading into 2022, then it'd just be like, take all of this money and buy whatever keys are, whatever price at the time of 2018, so that would be my cheat answer for that one. Cause clearly things have gone up quite a bit since that year. But I guess like the more practical advice is, I think just the tried and true stuff. I think at that time I was just sort of doing a little bit of everything and like, I don't know. Yeah. I'll read this new stuff. And, I remember this when I was a kid and that was actually fine and fun for me at the time. But I kind of wish I just understood collecting a little more, like, had more Dave from Comic Book Investment YouTube channels been existing at that time. I think I could have learned a lot faster and consumed a lot more of that stuff. I mean, I think there were some channels like Comic Tom might have been very, very young at that time. But that would have helped a lot, so just the knowledge aspect, I think, would have helped.
One of the biggest things that I see is, as a dealer, I get people's collections and they're like, hey, can you buy this collection from me? I'm ready to get out of comics, or I need some money, whatever it is. So they come to me with the collections and I just look through it and I'm just like, there's nothing here. Like,
right.
And it breaks my heart to tell the people like, hey, I can only offer you this. Why is it so low? It's worth this or worth that. I'm like, you don't have any keys. Like, if you don't have a key and it's not in a good grade, it's like, what am I going to do with this book? It's like they'll have some modern book in like a 9.0. And I'm like, yeah, you could sit on it for 5 years and hope someone's going to come along and pay you $40 for it or whatever, what it's worth. But like, I'm not going to sit on it for that long. Like, I would literally have to get this pennies on the dollar. And, I try to encourage people. It's like, if you're going moderns, you got to get 9.8s or the bare minimum 9.6s.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. Or they'll get a bunch of like, just doing the comic auction. I just got a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, these are all going to go for $5. And it's going to break my heart that there's nothing I can do about it,
Yeah.
Like,
and it's tough too, because it's like, to your point, like, and then it's, $3 book, $4 book, $5. It's like a lot of work for each single one every single time just to sell those. So yeah, it is tough when people have those types of collections, and I imagine.
And some of these people like really like a book. Maybe they bought it, for $20 raw. They send it in and they don't know how to grade, so it comes back a copy grade. Now they're into this book for almost $50, and it's like, well, yeah, but if you throw it in an auction, it's going to go for $5, or what I could pay for it. Like, maybe I could get like $40 for it if I sit on it forever, but I'm don't want to sit on it forever. It's like if I bought a Hulk 181, I'm gonna pay a higher price because I know I'll sell that thing within like a week.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
So,
Yeah. But I mean, I guess to that point, it's like, yeah, starting in 2018, you're just, I mean, not that like collecting has to be like, oh, I need to get all the keys and all the stuff. Everybody was, obviously those, that buy what you like adage and stuff. But yeah, for sure. There was a lot of, little here, random non-sets, random, dollar this and dollar that. And then eventually just takes a little time to focus and be like, okay, this is what I actually want, or here's where I want to go and things like that.
Yeah, I would say if you're completing a run, that's one thing, right? I want to get Spider-Man run or, Aquaman run. Okay, you're going to get a bunch of duds in there. That's fine. You got to complete it. But if you're just buying for the sake of buying, like you really have to ask yourself, what am I buying this for? Am I buying this for my kid's college fund, my retirement one day? Trust me, I get a lot of people that come through and they go, I'm ready to retire. Here's my stuff. And I'm like, good Lord. Like literally just like a couple weeks ago, I got this guy.
Like unironically, they're just like, here's my Dark Hawk one. I'm ready to retire. I mean, I say that as a joke, but like, yeah.
But I got this book guy's collection. He's ready to retire. He's not even that old. And I look at the stuff that he bought and I'm like, you know what you're doing. Like you bought all the right stuff. Like he has like just the stuff it showed me. It's like $500,000 of keys. Wow. It's like got a couple AF-15s, got a Hulk 1, got a like Hulk 181. Like you bought all the right books for like retirement, like investment. If you're buying because you like a story or something like that, you could also buy the replica, of every book, or the reprint or something. Or, it just really depends what your angle is. And me as the comic book investment, I'm always trying to teach people like, okay, I'm doing it from an investment angle.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure. And that really is what it is. I mean, for me, it's like on my channel, I'll talk like investment stuff, but really like a lot of it is just like, hey, collecting can be really expensive. So here are some thoughts and ideas to just sort of help, make everything pay for itself. And so, even outside of it being like, I want to go to the moon, in 5 years from now, like my kind of thing is like, just make sure that you can buy stuff and maybe you won't lose out on all of your money.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if anything, you can just kind of return it back into the market when you're done and you can kind of break even and that'll be fine.
I feel like with a lot of comics, unless you're buying the FOMO comics that are like peaking, any comic that you pretty much buy, you're going to at least sell as long as you know what you're doing and you're paying the appropriate price. I think you'll sell it for at least what you paid, if not a little bit more, even if it's a non-key.
Yeah. Like you said, as long as you're not buying it, someone I always chat with, I think you know him as well, Ryan, Automatic Comics, but he always preaches like this idea of like, you got, if you're really into comics, you got to have the price guide. It doesn't matter which one you pay for, like pay for one of them, GPA, go collect cover price, pay for one of them. So you can understand, which, like when you're buying a comic book that you're at least in the ballpark of whatever.
There's nothing wrong with overpaying for something you really want, just slightly. If what I tell people to use, if you don't want to pay for one of the price guides, you can use Heritage. They have 15 years of data, and the sign up to Heritage is free. Or you can use eBay, and they have the last 3 months of any given day.
Yeah.
So those are good ones to go off of. And I get people all the time saying, hey, is this a good deal? I'm like, type it in the price guide. No, it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Buy that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so I see you have a bunch of books back there. I can make out most of them. All good keys, I see for the most part. What's your, maybe the favorite book that you currently own, and a favorite book that you would like to own? Money's not an option, so you can't say Action 1 because I can turn around and sell for $3 million.
Yeah. That would be the not fun to do answer. Well, I think my favorite book in my collection, outside of like the nostalgia ones that I just had as a kid, I mean, the favorite, like let's call it expensive book, is just the Avengers one for me.
Okay, I can see right back there, top left third.
Somewhere right there. But it's just like I liked the Avengers growing up. I've always enjoyed them. Obviously, the MCU, what they did was incredible with all their, at least the Avengers film, in my opinion. And to me, I just think like what the book represents as a brand, I think is undervalued in my opinion. I realize that it's not like a first appearance of like a
Yeah, there's no
character or
first
anything like that,
appearances.
but the name, I think like for me, when I own the book, what I feel like is I own whatever that represents in pop culture. Like that's why people like AF-15 or TOS 39 or whatever, right? You feel like you own Spider-Man or Iron Man or whatever. So to me, I think Avengers as a brand name is at this point, maybe second to Batman and Spider-Man, but it's pretty up. It's pretty up there.
It's definitely up there. Now, what book would you like to own?
So truthfully, like the biggest book I think personally I would like to own is Captain America Comics 1. That would be like
2.
That's it's amazing. That book is amazing. I mean, Cap is one of my favorite characters, but also to just history. I think that it's
cool.
Such a cool moment in time, punching Hitler in the face. I mean, like it's just such a cool like propaganda piece and has like a lot of American history in it beyond the superhero aspect. So that would kind of be my big pick.
I don't know. There's something about those old golden age that I don't know. I love the art from them. I feel like the art in the 50s, at least in the superhero genre, through the 60s and even 70s. I know I'm gonna get so much hate. I feel like is not that it's not unique. Like I feel like it's a lot is very kind of bland. At least not bland compared to like how we have it now. I feel like around the 80s and 90s, that's when people started stretching their wings and being way more creative.
Yeah. I mean, there was something. I mean, I can understand where you're going at from that aspect, but even compared to like the golden age stuff, there's something like really pure about.
I love the golden
art
age stuff.
Like it just and it's cool too because you can tell that like at that time it's totally groundbreaking, right? Because it hadn't been done yet. So the art that they're doing is like really unique and coming up with like
at the wall, hoping it sticks.
And
once the comic code came in, they're like, okay, we don't want to ruin this. Let's just play the safest possible thing we can do. And that's how I feel it was. And even translated in the art, they're like, let's just be safe. Like that's why if you look at Spider-Man, I feel like he didn't even really drastically change until you get Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, for the most part, I think you're right. I definitely think you're right.
It kind of looked very similar. Like, I mean, slight little adjustments, but now you get artists today, and it's just like you can look at a cover, and it's just like, it's like every artist, at least a good artist, has like their own unique spin on the same character.
Yeah. I think that's true. I feel like the Copper Age was definitely like the time of like auteurs, coming back in, like real, like the creative energy of like people that probably at this point grew up on it and could then elevate it to like the next level. So the art definitely improved. But what about you as far as like, I'm curious, like as someone who like sees basically every book, it all goes through you. Does anything excite you anymore? Or do you have to like now, are you like the food critic that has to eat like the most obscure dish ever made? Can't enjoy pizza anymore.
This is a foreign African beetle baked in pig skin.
Yeah, exactly. You need like the most exotic ingredients.
It was very interesting when I first started my YouTube channel, because I'm so used to like my mind, because not only have I been doing this, for almost 15 years, but I grew up around it since I was born.
Yeah.
And I remember people would comment, it's like, I feel like David's seen this book 1,000 times and does not care. Like I'm holding someone's grail. I'm like, guess whatever, this toss.
Yeah, exactly. It's just on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Turtles #1. Second
yeah, there you go. No big deal.
Yeah, it's literally just sitting there. But honestly, the stuff that excites me the most is Golden Age stuff.
Yeah.
Golden Age stuff excites me the most. #1, I haven't seen it that much. And I just find it very, very cool. Like the problem is I find modern art very awesome. Like Jock is one of my favorite artists. He did, this Joker, Detective 880.
That's right.
He reminds me of like a kind of Bill, I always say his name, Bill
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, Sienkiewicz. Always.
I think it's I say Sienkiewicz. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Sienkiewicz or
I know it's
pronunciation.
I always Google it and like type in his name and then say how to pronounce, and every
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I say it over and over, and then I always butcher it. But it reminds me of kind of like his style that's like off the wall, like proportionally doesn't match, which is fine by me.
yeah.
And I love the art, but the problem is I'll buy those books and I know they're not going to be worth anything. So there's like, oh,
Right.
okay, I got the cool art, but it'll never be worth anything. And then for the Golden Age, it's like, oh, I can get this, crime suspense stories number 22 with the lady getting her head chopped off.
Right,
And
right.
then I know it's going to be worth a lot at the same time. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing too. I mean, like clearly with the Golden Age stuff, like when we're talking about, the scarcity is so much higher. So it's like, not only is it better, right? Because it's, so you don't have to worry about some paper-handed individual selling some Silver Age book and by proxy lowering the price of yours, that you already own. So like the Golden Age one, keeps the value better. But also it's like, to your point, like, yeah, it's so much harder to see. Every time I go to a comic book show, or whatever it is, like you can very easily go to any comic show in the country and there will be 30 AF-15s.
Yeah.
In every booth has AF-15. But like you said, some of those crime suspense stories or like, the other, Chamber of Chills 19, things like that. Those are very exciting because like only one dealer maybe has it.
Yeah, some of those books are just super rare, and I just like seeing it. And it's to your point, like you said, like they were figuring out what comics even were and what was going on. So they're taking, a lot of liberty stuff. I found myself falling in love with, Golden Age artists like Lou Fine. He did a lot of what did he do? He did like National Comic. I think he might have done some like weird science comics, stuff like that. But he has like a very unique style because they didn't know what like comics weren't like. It wasn't like a prized thing to be a comic artist.
Totally.
That's why Stan Lee like would deny that he wrote for comics back in the day because it was kind of looked down upon as like a field that you're in. So yeah, I don't know. I just find myself, LB Cole has a very unique style to him too. I just find myself falling in love with more Golden Age artists these days.
And it's a different part of history too, because it's like, it's like the American comics are so like Americana, in that sense. And so like there's that culture that exists, and it's so cool to see how like comics code has affected what was being made at what times in World War II affected what was being made. And so like when you can like follow the generations. And so there's so much of that history that's like super cool.
And it's so unfiltered. Like the stuff that you see on old Golden Age comics, you would
it's so crazy.
You'd never be able to do now. And I just love that stuff, how it's so unfiltered.
Even like Looney Tune stuff where it's like you'll see Bugs Bunny is just like holding a shotgun to like someone's, it's like stuff like that where it's just like I can't believe this is for kids, that they would just have this. And so there's so many of that type of stuff that's really funny when you come across it.
I don't know. I just love the Golden Age. I encourage people to collect, Golden Age stuff if they can, because that stuff is so rare. Like, let's see. So you started your YouTube channel in how long ago?
I guess as people would know it today, I'd say like end of 2020 was when I did like the, as far as a comic book channel is concerned, probably, around, I think November or going into December, right at the end of 2020.
So why did you decide to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah. So so outside of YouTube, I work in film. I'm in LA, and I basically like a lot of industries, the film one was very much hit pretty hard during lockdowns and everything like that. So, I had some work and stuff, and I was doing a lot of writing, and I eventually got to the point where, I finished whatever small amount of things I had to do. And I thought to myself, okay, what am I going to do today? Maybe I should make a YouTube channel. And for a while I was like, oh, maybe I'll make like a filmmaking one, or I can do like a how to write channel or how to film channel and something like that. But I didn't want to like mix, work life and YouTube. I thought that YouTube would just be a fun own little thing. And so I decided to make a hobby channel about comic books because, I saw other people talking about comics on YouTube, and I was like, that seems fun. I like comics. I want to talk about comics. So that was really, one day just decided, all right, let me make a video about this. And basically just kind of never really stopped since that point, you know?
That's cool. So do you, I'm assuming you enjoy it still, or you would probably stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I still enjoy it for sure. It was one of those things where I think at the time I told myself, I'm going to make like 30 videos. Like
I gave
I'm going
myself
to,
6 months. And
oh,
I was like,
okay.
yeah.
I just said I was going to make a certain amount of videos. There was no like pressure of like, I have to do it X amount. I was just like, I'm just going to do 30 and then just see how this goes. And when I got to 31, I was like, oh, I guess I should keep going because now there's some people who want to watch the next one. So yeah. And I've enjoyed it enough. And like, I'm sure, you know, like it becomes a grind at a certain point.
Oh,
And there are times where you're just like, oh man, like I really don't feel like being on camera today. But I try to not let it like run my life, you know. I just am like, if I feel like making something, I'll make something. If I'm not feeling it the day, then I won't bother. And I think it's okay. Like, you know, and that's kind of just how I've run it. And yeah, I still really enjoy it though.
That's good. Yeah, I love enjoying it, but I was doing for over a year. So when I first started, I was like, I'm gonna do 3 videos a week, and then after a month, I was like, I really enjoyed it, so I'm like, I'm gonna do a video a day. So I did a video.
That's crazy.
I did a video a day for a year and a couple months, and then that's when I was like, like I feel like it's another job, and it, you know, I've since backed off and you know done it less, but I just felt like I wasn't offering people enough because I was just like, what can I film today? Just anything, you know?
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that because it was like, because you always make great stuff, and I'm sure you feel, you know, there are times for me where it's like, as I've gotten bigger or like, you know, as more people have watched and stuff, like I feel more pressure to be like, well, if I make something, you're gonna spend whatever 10 minutes watching it, it better be like worth your time. At least that's kind of how I feel. So then I feel like, you know, I like to your point, like I don't want to just make a video that's just like, hey, and then talk about this and, you know, whatever. Like I feel like I should provide you with something if you're watching. And so you must have been hitting a point where it's like, yeah, it's like a struggle to be like, okay, what should I talk about today? And is it going to be like good, you know?
Yeah. So after I did a little over a year of daily videos, I like sat back and reevaluated like I don't want to just put out stuff just to put out stuff anymore. Right. And which actually had kind of a bad effect because when I was forcing myself to put out a video a day, I would force myself to do all this stuff. Now then, like I'm gonna do a video like 4 a week, and then I end up just getting lazy.
Yeah, well, it does. You know, if you force yourself to do it, then you just have to rise up to the occasion. You know, and you'll make something good. But yeah, it is hard because you know you probably care. You know, you want it to be good. You want it to be valuable.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, you know, I would try to make series because if I had a series, then I could just know every Monday I do this, every Tuesday I do this. Yeah. And I used to do, what is that? Cover Price's top 10. A lot of people did their top 10. And I would, you know, give my opinion on like what's going up and what's going down. Should you hold this book? Should you sell it? Should you even buy it? And the problem with those, I really dislike doing them because the problem with it is just what's hot now. And I found myself giving my honest opinion, don't buy this, don't buy this, don't buy this. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Literally just a top 10 of don't buy all this top 10.
Well, I mean, like, but that's the funny thing, right? Is because it's always going to be, just don't buy this. You know, like any book that's hot that week is probably not the time to buy it.
And so then I tried to like, okay, then I went with Key Collector and I would start digging deeper into stuff. And like, maybe because I don't want to be all negative. I hate being the negative channel. And so I was like trying to, because I have my dropping thing and
and which is great. Like you have like the ones that go up, like I think you always pick like 5 that are going up, 5 that are going down. And it's really,
I try to balance it out.
Yeah.
So I try to do that with the top 10. But then I also had another series where I would take like 5 comic book news stories that was going on, usually, TV or movie related, and like talk about them. And, but I didn't really like doing those and people didn't respond to it either. So that's like
Yeah.
I didn't like doing it because people didn't like it. So then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
800 views. Why am I even bothering?
You know, it's really, that's super funny because like the work, like, you know, I'm sure you get this where people are like, you know, David, do you even read comics? Like I'm sure you get like a, you know, because you talk about the financial side a lot. I'm sure you get that, but it's funny because the literally the least viewed video in my entire, you know, whatever, 2 years of doing comic book content, the least viewed one was when I made a video on tips to catch up on your comic book reading. And nobody cared about comic book reading. So it's really funny because it's like, to your point about like, yeah, I'm not going to do that one again. And a lot of it is the fact it's like, nobody wants to watch it. Like, I don't want to make this if nobody's going to watch it.
The absolute worst. And it's literally mentally and emotionally draining is when I think of a cool idea and I spend all this time writing scripts, filming, editing, putting like everything together, and it gets nothing. Like I did a video recently on the history of the Comics Code Authority on, you know, Frederick Wortham, and it's very interesting stuff. Like
Yeah.
he compared basically comics to, you know, as bad for children as Hitler was. And I'm like,
Yeah.
insane stuff. And he was also involved in a court case where this guy was a cannibal and would like lure children in and like eat them, and he's a serial killer, like all like crazy stuff. And I spent all this time researching. No joke. I was like, I've written scripts before. I'm like, I want this one to be huge. So I hired a script writer, gave him my script, and I'm like, you know, beef it up, punch it up. And
Nice.
I paid him. And then lo and behold, it's like my worst video of all time.
Oh no.
I literally could pop on the camera and just pick a random MCU story and just talk about it, spend zero effort on it, and it would get more than that. Or review, just watch like the latest She-Hulk video and review that. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was devastated at that point. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's tough. Wait, but when did you make that one?
a couple months ago.
You know what you should
No
do?
one saw it though.
Just do this. Okay. Keep it up,
No,
but
it
you
is
should
though.
re-release it on Halloween.
I could probably do something like that.
And just make it the theme, like, hey, it's Halloween, pre-code
But
horror. Let's
I
talk some
did
about, you know, something like
before.
that, you know?
I did the top 100 horror covers and released that, I think, near or on Halloween, and that one did terrible too. And I'm like,
all right, well then people don't like Halloween, so you know.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times though is I'll have my face in the thumbnail, and so I didn't on certain ones, and that could be a reason why. But I was like,
that could be it. That could be it. Because I think, yeah, people probably get conditioned. I mean, like I know it at this point, right? When I see your face, it's like, okay, here's the David video, you know, so I kind of know what to expect. And sometimes, yeah, it just goes past me. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, like with the ones, like it's hard because I've had some like ideas where, like, you know, like I said, like I work in film, and I thought to myself, like, I have some like funny skits. Like I would actually like to do some funny skits. But when I think about the real effort that would go into them, and the likelihood that, not even that it has to perform super well, but it's just one of those, like, you have to weigh the like effort to, you know, value level, I suppose, which takes maybe the joy out of it, but it just kind of is a thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting. You know, I thought the whole face theory was a thing, but my most viewed video doesn't have my face in it at all. It's like a top 10 90s comics, I think. And that one did like super well. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like, in my opinion, at least, if I have my face, my audience will recognize me. But if I have, but that doesn't help me get new audience, because now a new subscriber has no idea who I am. All they see is my massive face on the thing. But I don't know. I really don't know the algorithm very well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know it either, and it does feel like, I guess there's, you know, the people talk about like the evergreen videos, right? Where it's like, if it's like, here's the top 10 to invest in type of idea, like throughout the entire year, even, you know, 2 years out, people could probably still get value out of that video versus, like, you know, if we talk about the acetate book, no one's going to care. I mean, like, people care very much about it that week, but like 4 months from now, is anyone going to watch us talk about acetate? Probably not. You know,
There's
what I mean?
a CGC 10.0 up on eBay that ends in a couple days. I'm kind of curious what
Oh,
that goes for.
that one is the only one that'll ever
No,
be blue,
so
right?
no, it's not blue, it's green. So they
Oh,
graded
it
it
is.
after. And I'm like, why are they giving these 10.0s? Like
Yeah.
someone
How did he
actually
even get a 10? That
with
seems ridiculous.
extra staples. Like that's I like CBC's approach where they're like, we're gonna grade it as if it's qualified and it's damaged because someone put staples through it. I'm like, yeah, there's holes in the book now.
Yeah.
But
What
it's
what's your opinion? I know you talked about the CEO of CGC, and maybe you're being in jest and stuff about it, the whole thing. But what's your kind of take? Like, I'm curious from your perspective as someone who's like
so
doing deals like
are we talking
CGC.
about the acetate? Is that
I
where
I guess like in a bigger bucket, like how do you just feel about CGC right now versus say CBCS? Just where they stand, acetate or not.
I I mean, my dad works for CBCS.
Hmm.
They sold it, and Steve Borak has moved on. He doesn't work there anymore, and he founded
Right.
it. I mean, they each have their issues. They all have their problems, and but overall, I honestly think if I'm adding up the whole grading all the companies, I think CGC is the best for a number of reasons. Their customer service seems to be a little bit better than CBCS, but the real reason is the value that you get. It's like if you're sending
Yeah.
something to get graded, right? You want to, and it's encapsulated. Yeah, it costs money, but you want to have value in that. And
Yeah.
CGC holds its value better. CBCS holds its value too, but it's always worth slightly less than CGC. And so that's always an issue. Also, like a lot of people like don't understand, like I deal in this every day. And so I have customers, no joke. Like we used to use CBCS for a while, and they'll be like, I'll buy that book, but can you crack it out, send it to CGC, get it regraded? If it comes back the same grade, I'll buy it for. And I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I always wonder too. I mean, granted, maybe people debate it as like who grades tougher or whatever, but I feel like people have done really good videos of, hey, sometimes CBCS is harder, sometimes CGC harder, and guess what? Grading is subjective, so it really kind of just depends. But like,
and I've seen people do videos and they'll send in one book to all three. I'm like, that's such a small sample size.
yeah, yeah,
Like
it's
you
a small
got to
sample
send
size,
in
and
hundreds of books to each company
yeah,
and
yeah,
different eras. You got a silver, bronze, golden, and then like just that's how you have to do it.
yeah,
And then you have to technically send it all back around to the same company again to see how they regrade it, because maybe you had a guy that was off that day,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so
I
it's
mean, definitely that would be a truly great video to watch if you ever put in the
oh,
effort and money into doing this, like a very detailed,
in
you know,
time. It takes so
it would
long.
take definitely a lot of time, but that would be cool to watch. But the point kind of where I was going with it was, you know, if the CBCS book is worth a little bit less, I mean, to
Mhm,
me, it's like, sure, whatever the grading fee to send it into CGC.
mhm.
That's actually because at this point, like I mean, depending on the book, I kind of feel like they're both kind of the same. I understand CGC, people prefer it more, but if it really concerns you, just crack it out of the CBCS case and fast track it to CGC. So whatever, $70
Yeah.
less, and then there you go. That would be how I would evaluate it.
And then there's a PGX, and I had a guy text me earlier, and he's like, oh, I'm thinking about getting this 9.8 Spider-Man 300. It's a PGX 9.8. He's like, what should I pay for it? I'm like, the 9.4 price. Because you're gonna crack that thing
Yeah.
out, and there's a good chance that you. I'm like, if I don't see the book in hand, I automatically assume that PGX is 2 bumps down.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think PGX is a whole other conversation for
Yeah.
sure.
And then there's that other one I did a video on, and people got, I forget what they're called now. I did a whole video on it. EGS
Mm,
grading. Um, I'm not really a fan of theirs either. I just think CGC is the best. Like you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this? Are you getting it graded so you have a number just to attach to it so you know, or are you getting it graded because you want to protect your investment? And if you want to protect your investment, number one, CGC cases are the best, so physically protect it, and then also you're protecting it better monetarily wise if you use CGC, and you can say well, they suck here, they do this. But at the end of the day, if you're picking the best for your current book that you have in your hands, I think CGC is the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
That's
sense. I mean, it's
my
a
opinion.
strong argument. I totally get it. Do you think if CBCS changed their label, they would like, is that the one thing that's holding it back? Like, obviously there's other things holding it back, but like, do you think that would make a huge difference, or would it be the same?
It would. So it would help a little bit, but now you're just helping with the people that care about the label. So you're never. I even talked to Steve about this. He's like, we're never going to capture the vintage comic market. It's never going to happen because if you have an Action One and it's graded by CBCS and it's a 3.0, and then you have Action One by CGC 3.0, which one are you going to go for?
Well, of course, yeah. At this point, the CGC, yeah,
exactly. So you're never going to capture that market because that market has already been established. So you can go for the more modern books, and that's where they say they see a lot of growth, or at least at the time you told me. And so I think having a new label will help because those people that collect the modern books do like fancier labels.
That
So
makes
I think
sense.
it will help. And I'm like, who's your designer? Like, you're a multi-million-dollar company. Like,
Yeah.
literally, you could hire a designer to design something better than this.
It shouldn't take that long. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, I like, do they know? Like, you should tell them, Dave. You should tell them. Like, hopefully they know that there's a large
Someone there
subset of
has
the
to
community
know.
that does not like their label.
They're probably all surrounded by a bunch of yes men, and
yeah, that could be it. Yeah, but that's why it's like you need the outside person to be like, guys, I'm telling you, like, you want to increase profits by 20% immediately this year if we change our label.
Yeah, even I just had a CBCS label in, and I was comparing it to CGC, and I'm like, the colors just look dim. It looks uninviting. It just, like, compared to CGC, it just pops. And I'm like looking, I'm like, what is it? Like, why? It just looks dingy.
yeah. Well, it like those things, it lacks contrast because, like, the number doesn't pop in the same way.
Yeah.
And it also, like, even the barcode that they use is like, it's more confusing. Even when, like, you have to, like, look up on the registry, it's got like dashes and letters. I mean, I think they can't change the barcode at this point, but, like, just all of that stuff, all of it.
I know Steve told me this. He said, I'm not even joking. He said, I want our labels to be not attractive because we want people to look at the book. So he wants, I think in his mind, if we make an unattractive label, it will make the book look better, and by comparison. But I'm like, yeah, I don't think people see it that way.
It's like, I understand the thought.
Yeah.
I totally understand the thought, but I don't know. I think the number, because the number then represents the status of the book, so, like, the number, it trumps the book at that point. So I don't know.
Oh man, yeah, it's interesting. Are you a CGC person? I see most of them up there are CGC for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not, like, I don't really have an affinity towards either one. I mean, like, all the things that you said, like, yeah, like, if I'm going to submit books, I'm probably going to send it to CGC. Like, if it's something of value and I want to protect it, I'm probably going to send it to CGC. I mean, like you said, it just does have the most, it does hold the most value. So it just makes sense.
Resale, when you're trying to sell it.
in resale. If there was a book, but I wouldn't be against, like, let's say I was browsing around and I wanted a particular book, and the one that was available at the price I was willing to pay for it was in CBCS. If it's like, this is the one, then I'll get it. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to instantly shy away from buying a CBCS book.
Yeah, I wouldn't shy away from CBCS either in that context. PGX, I definitely would. I'd be very leery because I'm like, that could be restored or missing page. I've gotten that before. I cracked out a book. Oh, it's missing a centerfold. Thank you.
Yeah.
So do you consider, are you mostly a collector, or are you a collector and dabble in dealing, or what?
I would say that I'm a pseudo collector investor, and I dabble in dealing in so much as I just try to make the hobby pay for itself as much as I can. Or I often will do sort of like spring cleaning in my collection. If everything, it's like Marie Kondo. It's like every book has to bring you joy. And if it doesn't bring me joy anymore, then I'm going to sell it. And someone else can enjoy it or whatever. So I just try to keep that door revolving, and it's not a tremendous amount. It's just little eBay sales here and there and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And, I view it as partial investment in the sense that it's a small amount of little fun money that gets put into it, and kind of a fun way to like hold some value or be a store of value in the future. And, I don't think I'm not going to open an LCS, or there's no plans for me to be like a comic book dealer at any point. So outside of that, that's
is it kind of like one day you're going to retire and you're going to sell this stuff and
I think
eat somewhere. Whatever you're going to do.
I would say it's not necessarily my retirement plan, but it is like, if I can, like, well, this is a bad example, but in theory, if I could like trade my way up into a Captain America Comics 1 somehow one day, right? Where it's like, not necessarily, and that one might go faster than I could possibly trade into it.
What's crazy though? All those books on your wall back there, if this was 4 years ago or something like that, you could have easily traded those books behind you for a Captain 1. No problem. Like, no problem. Yeah, when I got into the industry, it was completely different. I would get pre-Robin detectives regularly. Everything was much more affordable, and I don't mean like, oh, it was cheaper, right? No, I mean compared to like, a Captain America 100 compared to a Captain America 1. Yeah, obviously the number 1's higher, but like the difference level wasn't like astronomical. I would get Batman 1s all the time. Like I said, I had 2 Cap 1s. One was like pretty much like a 0.5, and another one was a 2.5. So, but it looked really nice. It was just massively spine split. But I mean, I sold that one for $30,000, I think.
Right. Which is like, at that time, a number that's possible.
Exactly.
Like that's totally possible. You could work your way into that.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like it's not like the 1920s and people were making like $1 a day.
Right.
So like, it was definitely affordable. Like, I had that Hulk 181 9/8. I always complain about. It was signed by Stan Lee, and I sold for $30,000. I don't know. It's like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. It was a 9/8. Wow. Now they're going for one just sold for 140.
Wait, how many? Do you know how many Stan Lee ones at 9/8 there are? Would that have been the only one?
It was. There might. So I had 3 signatures, and I think it was one of 2 9/8s that had 3 signatures on it. And
that's
the
crazy
thing was, I bought it from Comic Link for $13,000, and I had it for almost 4 years, starting at 30 grand, dropping to 25, dropping down to 20, dropping down to 18, and no one bought it. So finally, we're like, let's just give it back to Comic Link, and they put it in, and someone offered us $30,000 before the auction even started, and we sold it.
Wow, that's so crazy.
But yeah, it literally sat on eBay for years, no one wanting it for that price. And it's just recently certain ones have just gone ridiculous. So yes, if this was a few years ago, you could have easily sold all those and got like a Cap 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah. So the idea is just to, like the stuff that like kind of sits on the wall behind me are like the books that I obviously look at the most. But the wall's always changing. It's always kind of a revolving door. It's like I made a video where I was talking about like running your collection like a shrewd general manager of a sports team. Where it's like, you got to trade. You always got to draft new prospects, and sometimes your first baseman's getting a little old, and we got to cut him. We got to put the young one in. It's like, so I kind of treat it like that all the time. So the goal is just enjoy the ones I have, and maybe the equity and the value kind of goes up over time.
Do you have like a bunch of comics? I know I watched, I think it was Journo, his channel, and he was downsizing, and he said he had something like 25,000 comics. I was like, good Lord. That's a lot of stuff just sitting around that like you're not going to ever thumb through and like, here, let me reread this one.
It's a lot for sure. It's a lot to manage. And so to answer your question, no, I don't have like a ton of comic books. Like I have like, probably a couple long boxes. sort of thing.
Yeah.
That I fill up and stuff. And people ask me too, like, oh, like Swag, like, are you ever interested in buying collections and stuff? And while it's attractive, like if I could buy a collection and there were like cool keys in it and I could get, them for really, really cheap, that'd be awesome. But then I have to like deal with the collection, and sell it off. And I don't want to, I won't say that I'll never do it, but I don't want to be in that game, that for me, because it's overwhelming.
It would kind of, if you're, trying to be like a collector stuff, I could see it like ruining the hobby because then it becomes a job.
Yeah. And YouTube has already kind of become a job in that sense, in a weird way. And so I'd like to still find joy in just like flipping through book, and just hunting and just keep that sense of it. But I mean, clearly buying collections is the best way to get the best value, on any one book. So I totally, could see why people would want to do that.
Yeah. So are you passionate about anything outside of comics and YouTube? Like, do you have any like things you like to do? Anything?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a 2-time dog owner, so I like to spend a lot of my time with my dogs.
2-time as in you own 2, or?
Oh, sorry. No, I have two dogs. I have 2 dogs.
What kind of dogs?
One is a Doberman and one is a Pit Bull Weimaraner mix.
Oh, okay.
And
so they're like medium to large.
Yeah. Doberman is biggerish. He's probably like 60 pounds. And then the Pit Weimaraner, she's like 45 to 50 or so. So spend time with dogs. Like to go hiking from time to time. Like sports, like hanging out.
What sports do you like?
I play hockey a bunch. I'm big into soccer. So I would say those are the 2, but I enjoy everything, like basketball and baseball, watching stuff as well.
Okay, I was out watching the games.
Nice. You're in San Diego, right?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego.
Were you born in San Diego?
No, I was actually born up in Northern California, but then at like 3, we moved to. I just love this story why we moved. There was a murder down the street at a park. We lived near a park. And then my parents were like, oh, California is going to hell. And so not just my family, but my dad's entire family moved up to Washington for that reason. And because they thought, because this was probably during the Cold War or near it, they thought that we were going to get nuclear bombed in California. So they wanted to be in the middle of nowhere in Washington where we couldn't get hit by a nuke.
This is like when it's like, look, I watched Independence Day. Okay. And when the aliens blew up all the cities, they did not blow up Washington. All right.
Yeah.
There's no monuments to blow up in Washington.
Exactly. So my grandpa moved, and then my dad and my mom followed when I was like 3. Lived in Washington until I moved out of the house. After I graduated high school, I moved out and moved down here. So
got it.
So yeah. What about you?
I was born in the Bay Area, and then I went to college I
was born in Fremont.
Okay, yeah. So I'm San Mateo based. But I went down to college here in LA, and basically been in LA ever since college. So most of my life. And
you do film? Like, what part of film do you do?
So I write and direct. So I got my start doing a ton of music videos. And so did that for basically 8 to 10 years, directing music videos, worked with a lot of great artists, did a lot of crazy stuff, had a lot of parties. It was a lot of fun. And then I kind of, as you do in that world, you're always trying to move in to the next phase. And so I moved mostly to commercials. I do a lot of that, and then kind of dived into screenwriting. So I've written write for a lot of video game companies. I've written for a lot of TV shows and animations and things like that. So
anything we would know?
Well, I do a lot of video game work. So I write a lot for Riot Games. I have, if you know, League of Legends, and I've written a lot for Wizards of the Coast, like D&D and Magic the Gathering, and
I love
companies. Oh yeah.
It's the only game I play. I literally play it every single day. There's
Oh,
not
that's
a-
awesome. No, that's
um,
I love Magic too.
Magic Arena.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
the mobile
Well,
one.
the online one for sure. Easy to way better to do. All because my hobby money's got to go to comic books. I can't keep up buying Magic cards. It's
Yeah.
way too crazy right now.
I used to play Magic when I was in high school and middle school, and then they came out with this app, and I'm like, now I get to play all day long. Like before,
Yes,
it's like you could play whoever's in your school, and it's like one person.
yeah.
Now
Do
it's
you
like,
Are you into Magic the Gathering cards at all? Like, do you have
yeah,
like alpha cards and things like
I
that?
sold all my decks when
Mm,
I like moved multiple times. Everything got smaller and smaller because it can't lug stuff around when you're like younger. But I sold all my cards. One day I would like to get back into cards, but like you said, it's an additional expense. I
yeah,
actually really enjoy playing the game. Like I'll
yeah.
play tonight. There's not a day that goes by I don't
Oh,
play
that's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I write a lot for Magic. Like they do cinematics and they have some stuff, NDA stuff. I can't talk about that. I've written and worked on, but like I do a lot of work for them and absolutely love the game, love doing that work and yeah, I Magic the Gathering alpha cards are the things that I keep looking at them and I'm constantly
Expensive.
watching on
Do you
eBay.
watch? Do you watch Alpha Investments,
Oh,
Rudy?
I love Rudy's hilarious.
That's where
Rudy's
I got my channel from.
oh, okay, right. Comic book investments. Brilliant.
Alpha
Yeah.
Investments, yeah, because I watch Rudy all the time, and so then I
Mhm.
was like, hey, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, but you want to be on my channel? And never responded, but
That'd be awesome if you had I think Rudy is hilarious. Like I think
yeah,
he's a great hobby YouTuber personality.
yeah, he's pretty down
Definitely
to
worth a
earth.
yeah.
So,
Um, but yeah, I keep watching Magic the Gathering. I haven't pulled or haven't pulled the trigger on any like big cards yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
yeah, I mean, one day I'd like to go back. Man, one of these days I'll have to do a music video through you. Then I didn't
Oh
know you
yeah,
were.
you're a musician, right?
Yeah, that's like so for like your like obviously you do film stuff for work, and then your passion is comics. It'd be like I do comics for work, and then my passion is like music.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. The perfect inverse matching in that
yeah,
sense.
so I'm working on my third album.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I
working
would
on that.
love to hear what you got cooking
Yeah, I
right
have
now.
all the stuff's up on Spotify. My band's name is Love Angeles, so it's pretty.
Awesome.
Has nothing to do with Los Angeles though. It's like a long story. But yeah, if you ever want to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
But so I'm assuming since you own dogs, you're like you say you go dogs your life pretty much.
Yeah, it's like dogs are I don't have kids, so
Yeah, no,
the dogs are my kids at this point in my life. So
do
it's a
they
lot
sleep
of
in bed with you
yeah, they do.
every night? Every
Yeah,
night.
for sure. Yeah,
My,
yeah.
my
Like I
girlfriend
know.
tried to kick him out one time, and I was like, "I'm sleeping on the couch. Then there's no way I'm
Did
not going to sleep with my dogs."
did you
in
have
bed."
your dogs before your girlfriend?
I didn't. We
Okay, I
got
was
our
gonna say.
first one. I've had dogs growing up my whole
Okay.
life, but like I said, moving to different places with roommates and stuff, I never could have any dogs. Do you have a girlfriend or wife?
Yes, I have a wife,
Oh,
Mrs. Swag. Yeah, she makes fun of my low graded comic books, as people on
you're
my channel know.
low grade.
She just, she has no respect. She just assumes the higher the grade, the more valuable. I try to tell her all the time. I'm like, look, just because it's a 2.5 doesn't mean it's not valuable. And she's just
True.
like, yeah, but it just looks like crap. She says it, she's joking, but like
Yeah.
she likes to tease me for that. So everybody on my channel knows that if I buy a book that's lower than a certain threshold of grade, they know that Mrs. Swag's going to make fun of me.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, it's been awesome having you on. I don't want to take up too much time. We're at an hour. I always tell
Yeah.
people, I'm like, once we get going, like I remember I did this one of my first ones I did. It was 3 hours long. I was like, it's supposed to be an hour, but I try to keep it at an hour. Thanks again for coming on this channel. And it's fun talking to you. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Backstory and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything you want to say to anyone out there?
Yeah, no, I just appreciate you, having me on the channel and inviting me on. And yeah, let's do it. Let's do it again sometime. And come over to my channel and we'll do something similar.
Yeah, we can do a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can interview me.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right.
All right, cool,
Later.
Dave. See you guys.